It was late evening, and the city was already slipping into the cold arms of the night. The air felt heavy with the chill, and people at the bus station wrapped their coats tightly, eager to get home. Among the crowd stood a young girl with tired eyes and worn-out shoes. Her clothes were thin for the weather, and a small bag was slung over her shoulder. Everything she owned in the world probably fit in that one bag. She had been at the station for hours, watching buses come and go. The world around her moved. Quickly, people rushing with phones in their hands, laughing, complaining, buying coffee from the little stall nearby. She was used to being invisible in all of it. Nobody asked her name, nobody cared where she slept. Life had taught her to expect nothing from anyone, but tonight, something unexpected was about to happen. As another bus pulled in with a loud hiss, people formed a short line to get on. The girl stood near the back, not sure if she would even ride. She was counting the few coins in her pocket, hoping to stretch them for a meal later. Then she noticed a man near the front of the line. He looked neat, dressed in a simple coat, but he kept patting his pockets, his face tense. The bus driver was staring at him impatiently. The man finally spoke to the driver. I don't have enough change. Can I pay you when I get off?" The driver shook his head sharply. "No money, no ride. Come on, people are waiting." The man looked embarrassed, searching his pockets again as if money would magically appear. People in line began to sigh and grumble. A few stepped around him to get on the bus, avoiding eye contact. It was clear he didn't have the fare, and the bus driver was seconds away from closing the door in his face. The girl felt a tug in her chest. She didn't know this man. He hadn't even looked at her. But she understood the feeling of being stuck, of needing help and having no one step forward. Before she could talk herself out of it, she walked up quietly and held out her small stack of coins. "Here," she said softly. "This should be enough." The man turned, surprised. For a moment, he didn't move, staring at her like he couldn't believe it. "No, I can't take your money," he said. "Just take it," she replied. Her voice was steady, but there was no pride in it. "I have a little extra." It was a lie. She didn't have extra. Those coins were all she had for the night. But something in her heart told her it was the right thing to do. The man hesitated, then nodded slowly and accepted the coins. He gave them to the driver, who punched the ticket without even looking up. The man turned back to the girl. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. She only nodded. The bus door closed, and soon it was rumbling away into the night. As the crowd thinned, the girl walked back to the bench where she had been sitting before. The station felt colder now, the lights buzzing overhead. She pulled her thin jacket tighter on her shoulders, feeling the weight of the empty pocket where the coins had been. But strangely, she didn't regret it. It wasn't like her life was comfortable anyway. One more cold night wouldn't change much. She had slept in worse places before, under bridges, behind grocery stores, anywhere the rain couldn't reach her. The coins would have bought her a little food, maybe a warm drink. Now they were gone. She sighed and leaned back against the bench, staring at the glowing signs of the buses coming and going. People passed by, laughing into their phones, carrying bags of groceries, stepping into cars that waited for them. A whole world of warm homes and dinners and lights, and none of it belonged to her. Still, something about the man's face stayed in her mind. He hadn't looked like the usual kind of people she met on the streets. There was something tired in his eyes, like he carried a weight bigger than the empty pockets he had tonight. But she didn't know his name. She didn't know where he was going, and she definitely didn't know that the man whose bus fare she had just paid was not some ordinary stranger. He was a CEO, a man who could change lives with a single decision. But right now, to her, he was just someone who needed help. And for the first time in a long time, she had been able to help someone, even if it cost her the little she had left. Somewhere in the night, as she curled up on the bench with her bag as a pillow, the bus carrying. The stranger moved toward the brighter parts of the city. And on that bus, the man sat silently, holding the ticket she had paid for, wondering about the girl who had nothing yet gave away everything she had. He couldn't stop thinking about her. And that was the beginning of everything that was about to change. The night dragged on slowly for the girl after the bus left. The wind at the station grew colder, cutting through her thin jacket like it wasn't even there. She sat on the bench for a while, hugging her small bag close to her chest, watching as the station slowly emptied. One by one, the buses stopped coming, the food stall closed, and the lights over the ticket counter went dark. She had nowhere else to go. Eventually, she got up and walked toward the streets she knew well. The city never truly slept, but there were corners where no one bothered you, where a person could close their eyes for a few hours if they didn't mind the hard ground. She found one behind a row of shops where the wind didn't reach as much. Pulling her jacket tighter, she sat on the concrete and leaned against the cold wall. Her stomach growled softly. The last time she had eaten was yesterday afternoon, a small piece of bread someone at the soup kitchen had given her. The coins she gave the stranger tonight would have bought her something warm, maybe rice from the cheap cafe down the road, or even a cup of tea to fight the cold. But now there was nothing. She closed her eyes anyway, telling herself she was used to hunger. It wasn't the first night she had gone to sleep with nothing in her belly, and it probably wouldn't be the last. Still, her mind kept wandering back to the man on the bus, the way he had looked at her before leaving. That soft "thank you" in his voice. People didn't usually talk to her kindly. Most just looked through her like she didn't exist. But he hadn't. She wondered where he had gone, what kind of life he lived. Probably one with walls and a bed and food waiting for him. Not like hers. Meanwhile, miles away, the man she had helped wasn't sleeping either. He sat in his warm apartment with the city lights glowing through the windows. On the table in front of him was the small bus ticket, crumpled from his pocket. He had set it down when he got home, and now he kept staring at it like it held some secret he couldn't figure out. He was a man with everything money, a successful company, people who answered his calls with "yes, sir," before he even finished speaking. He had cars, a big house, and a life most people would envy. But tonight, what stayed in his mind was the thin girl at the station who had paid for his bus fare when she clearly had nothing. Why had she done it? She didn't know him. She had no reason to help him. And yet, she had given him the only money she had. That kind of kindness was rare. He had spent years in business surrounded by people who only wanted something from him: investments, jobs, favors, money. But this girl, she had expected nothing back. It bothered him, in a good way. It made him curious. Who was she? Why was she at that bus station alone, with no coat thick enough for the cold? He realized he couldn't stop thinking about her. Something inside him wouldn't let it go. The next morning, the girl woke stiff and sore from sleeping on the ground. Her stomach ached, but she pushed the feeling aside like she always did. She walked to the public restroom to wash her face with cold water. Her reflection in the cracked mirror showed tired eyes and messy hair, but she didn't spend long looking at herself. She had to find food. As she headed toward the soup kitchen, she passed by the same bus station from last night. She didn't expect anything different. It was just another day. But she didn't know the man from the bus had come back. He had been there since early morning, waiting near the ticket counter, asking people if they had seen the girl from last night. Some recognized her description: small, thin, carrying a brown bag, always quiet. A man selling coffee pointed toward the streets nearby. "She comes here most mornings," he said. "Usually heads to the soup kitchen after." So the man waited, and when he finally saw her walking slowly toward the station, his chest tightened. She looked even smaller in the daylight, her jacket too thin for the cold. She didn't notice him until he stepped forward. "Hey," he said gently. She stopped, surprised. People didn't usually talk to her unless they wanted her to move out of the way. "You," she said softly, recognizing him. "The bus, last night." He nodded, smiling faintly. "I wanted to find you. I owe you breakfast at least." She blinked, unsure what to say. Nobody owed her anything, but there was something in his voice that didn't sound like pity. It sounded sincere. She hesitated for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly, and just like that, a simple breakfast was about to change everything. The small cafe near the station smelled of warm bread and coffee when they walked in. The girl hadn't been inside a place like this in a long time. Most days she just watched from the outside while people sat at tables, eating food she could only dream about. Now she was sitting at one of those tables herself. Her thin hands folded in her lap. The man ordered 2 plates of eggs, toast, and tea without even asking her what she wanted. She didn't mind. At this point, anything hot felt like a gift. When the food came, she hesitated before touching it. It felt strange, like maybe someone would come and take it away the moment she reached for it. The man noticed. "Go ahead," he said softly. "It's yours." She nodded slowly and took a small bite. The warmth filled her empty stomach, and for the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe properly. The man didn't speak much at first. He just watched her eat, realizing how quickly she finished the food, like she was afraid it might disappear. He felt a tightness in his chest. This wasn't just hunger. This was a life of going without. Finally, when she slowed down, he asked, "What's your name?" She looked up, unsure if she should tell him. People rarely asked. She gave her name. Quietly, he repeated it softly, like he wanted to remember it. They talked a little after that. Mostly. She answered his questions with short replies. She wasn't used to people caring about her life. She told him she had been on the streets for over a year. Her parents had passed away, and with no relatives to help, she had left school and tried to survive on her own. Sometimes she found small jobs cleaning, carrying groceries, but nothing that lasted. Nights were spent at shelters when there was space, or outside when there wasn't. The man listened carefully. He didn't interrupt, didn't ask questions that would hurt. He just let her talk. And the more she spoke, the more he felt something shift inside him. He had seen poverty before, read about it, donated money even. But sitting across from this girl who had given away her last coins for his bus fare, it felt different. Personal. She had nothing. Yet she had helped him. Why? Why did you pay for me last night? He finally asked. She shrugged lightly. "You needed help," she said simply. "But you needed help too." She looked down at her hands. "Doesn't matter. You needed it more." In that moment, the answer stunned him. In his world, people only gave when they had plenty. She had given when she had nothing. When breakfast was over, she stood up, ready to leave. She had no idea why he had brought her here. Maybe it was just to repay the bus fare with a meal. Maybe he would forget her after today. But as she turned to go, he said, "Wait, I want to see you again." She paused. Nobody ever said that to her. "I have. Work things," he said slowly. "But tomorrow, same time?" Here, she didn't know what to say. People usually disappeared from her life as quickly as they appeared. Still, something in his voice made her nod. "Okay," she said softly. That night, she found a spot behind the shelter to sleep. The cold didn't feel as sharp. Her stomach wasn't aching for once, but mostly she kept thinking about the man from the cafe. Why did he want to see her again? The next day, he returned. This time, he brought her new clothes. Nothing fancy, just a worn jacket, shoes without holes, a small backpack with some food. She stared at the things like they weren't real. "For me?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "For you." She didn't cry. She hadn't cried in a long time. But something in her chest felt heavy, like tears wanted to come, but had forgotten how. They ate together again. He asked about the things she liked, things she dreamed of doing if life had been kinder. She told him she used to like reading, but books were a luxury now. She wanted to finish school one day, maybe get a real job, maybe have a small place to live where nobody told her to leave. As she spoke, he was already making a decision in his mind. This girl didn't need just food or clothes, she needed a chance. He was in a position to give it to her. The next morning, as they sat in the cafe again, he looked at her seriously. "What if," he said slowly, "I told you I could help you start over? A job, a safe place to stay, maybe even school again." She froze, staring at him. "Why?" She whispered. "Because everyone deserves a chance," he said simply. "And you gave me one when you didn't have to." She didn't answer right away. It sounded like a dream, and dreams usually disappeared when she reached for them. But, looking at him, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The girl sat very still after he spoke. A job? A safe place to stay? School? It sounded like the kind of thing people made up in stories, not something that actually happened to people like her. Her life had been one long of closed doors. Every time she tried to hope for more, the world had taught her to stop dreaming. So she stared at him, unsure if this was real. "You don't even know me," she said finally, her voice soft but steady. He nodded. "You're right. I don't know everything about you. But I know enough." "Enough?" she repeated, confused. "I know you had nothing and still helped a stranger. I know you're smart because you survived out here alone. And I know you deserve better than the life you have right now." He paused, watching her face carefully. "That's enough for me to believe in you." His words sank deep, but she shook her head slowly. "People don't just give things like that," she whispered. "Not to someone like me." He leaned back in his chair. "I'm not giving you anything for free. I'm offering you a chance to work, to learn, to have a real life again. The rest, you'll have to build yourself." She looked down at her hands, still unsure. Part of her wanted to say yes right away. Another part was afraid this was some trick, that one day he would change his mind, and she'd be left broken again. He seemed to understand her hesitation. "You don't have to decide now," he said gently. "Take a day, think about it." That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay on her thin blanket behind the shelter, staring at the dark sky. What if he was serious? What if this was real? But what if she said yes and failed? She thought about all the times people had looked past her, all the nights she had gone hungry, all the jobs that had ended before they really began. Her life had been one long fight for survival. And now, out of nowhere, someone was offering a way out. It felt impossible. The next morning, he was waiting at the cafe again. She walked in slowly, her stomach twisting with nerves. He smiled when he saw her, but didn't pressure her. "Did you think about it?" he asked. She nodded. "I don't want charity," she said quickly, before she could lose courage. "I'll work, I'll do anything, but I don't want pity." He leaned forward. "This isn't pity, it's a job offer." He smiled faintly. "And I happen to be the one who can give it to you." She blinked at him, confused. "You own the place where I'd work?" He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I own more than one, actually. A few companies, offices, stores, restaurants." The words didn't fully sink in right away. She had thought he was just some man with a warm coat and a little money to spare, but this was different. "You own companies?" She repeated slowly. "Yes," he said simply. "I'm the CEO, and I have a place where we could use someone like you. A real job, paychecks, a small apartment to stay in. And if you want to finish school, I can help with that too." Her mind spun. The man whose bus fare she had paid with her last coins was a CEO, and now he was offering her a life she had stopped believing in long ago. She didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or run out the door because it felt too big to be real. He reached into his bag and handed her a piece of paper with an address on it. "If you want to start, be here tomorrow morning," he said. "The manager knows you're coming. I told him everything." She stared at the paper like it was made of gold. "You told him about me?" she asked carefully. He nodded. "I told him about the girl who gave her last coins to help a stranger, and how she's about to change her life." For a long moment, she didn't speak. She felt like if she opened her mouth, the tears she had been holding back for years might finally fall, but she only nodded. "I'll be there," she said quietly, and for the first time in a very, very long time. She smiled. That night she didn't sleep much. Not because of fear this time, but because her mind kept racing. Tomorrow, a job. A real job. She pictured herself not just surviving, but living. Maybe even going back to school like she had once. Dreamed. And as she closed her eyes, she realized this stranger, this CEO, had changed everything with one simple offer. The morning air felt different when she woke up. For the first time in months, she didn't wake up with the heavy feeling of hunger twisting in her stomach or the cold biting at her skin. She still slept on the hard ground behind the shelter that night. But today felt like it carried a promise. She got up early, washed her face at the public restroom, and smoothed her hair as best as she could. The paper with the address was folded neatly in her pocket, like it was the most precious thing she owned. She walked across the city with quick steps, nervous but determined. She didn't want to be late. When she reached the address, she stopped in her tracks. It wasn't just a store. It was a whole office building with big glass windows that reflected the morning sun. People in clean uniforms were already going inside. They looked busy, important. For a second, she wondered if she was dreaming. What was a girl like her doing here? But she pulled her shoulders back and walked in, clutching the paper like a lifeline. Inside, a man at the front desk greeted her with a polite smile. "You must be the one we were told about," he said warmly. "Come with me." He led her through bright hallways into a small office where a manager was waiting. The manager shook her hand and explained the work. It wasn't difficult, basic tasks like organizing files, cleaning a few spaces, and helping in the kitchen area. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real work. Honest work, and it came with pay and a place to stay. She listened carefully, nodding at everything. She was ready to work harder than anyone if it meant leaving the streets behind. The first week was strange for her. Sleeping in a small apartment with a bed and a door that locked felt unreal. Having 3 meals a day felt like a luxury she didn't deserve. But she showed up every morning on time, worked without complaints, and learned fast. People at the office soon noticed her quiet determination. She didn't talk much, but she was always polite, always willing to help. And every few days, the CEO stopped by to see how she was doing. He never treated her like she was different from anyone else. He just asked if she was okay, if she needed anything, if she was settling in well. Slowly, she began to trust that this wasn't going to disappear overnight. One evening, after her shift, he invited her to his office. She walked in nervously, not sure why he wanted to see her. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was her first paycheck. She stared at the amount written there. It wasn't huge, but to her, it felt like a mountain of gold. "For me?" she asked softly, still in disbelief. He smiled. "You earned it." She held the envelope like it was something sacred. She had spent so long begging for coins or picking up small jobs that never lasted. Now she was holding money she had actually worked for. It felt different. It felt right. Months passed. She saved every bit she could. The CEO helped her enroll in evening classes so she could continue her education. Life slowly transformed in ways she never thought possible. She rented a small room near the office, bought herself clothes that weren't falling apart, even started reading books again like she had loved to do before life had turned so hard. She was no longer the invisible girl at the bus station. She was building a future. One afternoon, as she finished work, she saw the CEO waiting by the door. "Got a minute?" he asked with a smile. She nodded, walking beside him as they left the building. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "the night you paid for my bus fare, I kept wondering why you did it." She shrugged lightly. "You needed help." He smiled. "Yes, but in helping me, you changed your own life too. Funny how kindness works, isn't it?" She looked down, her voice quiet. "I didn't think it would lead to all this." He stopped and turned to her. "That's the thing about kindness," he said softly. "It always comes back. Sometimes in ways we can't imagine." That night, she walked home holding her books for class, her paycheck in her bag, and a smile on her face. One bus ticket. One small act of kindness. It had changed everything. And for the first time in a long, long time, her life felt full of possibilities. This closed the story in a way that leaves viewers emotional and inspired, showing how one simple act of kindness can change two lives forever.